Are my friends, our friends in Great Britain, are they monitoring the insanity of Russia in the U.S.? And what do they think about it?
I think it's a lot less intense for us over here. I think most people kind of have moved on from the Russia scandal and the agenda that was pushed so heavily from CNN. But spotters like me, who are kind of really into your news, what's going on, are watching CNN unraveling. And certainly with some enjoyment, I have to say, which is not a very kind thing to say.
By the way,
I think certainly from
even our friend
British perspective, for Sean, from a British perspective, I would say we see definite parallels over here with our state broadcaster, which is the BBC, which has its own agenda, as you'd know, and is always against the Tory government and Brexiteers. So we do have parallels here in the UK.
Well, maybe that'll change, if Sky goes to Fox News, right?
Absolutely, and we certainly are feeling the change. What we have learned watching America, and we have learnt from America, is to question more, to question the narrative that the mainstream media would like to force down our necks. And if there's something positive to be gained out of CNN falling and failing so spectacularly, it's that the wider public, who aren't spotters like you or I, are actually starting to question everything they're told. And I think that's probably a great thing.
Well, I think it's a great thing, too. I mean, what's amazing about the left in this country, though, is they actually want to silence voices like people like me. But I guess it's not that surprising, is because the Gobby One, you have come under fire almost your entire career. And we got to get you on TV soon. We haven't had you on the TV program yet. But do a lot of people, if I went to Great Britain, would a lot of people know who I am or no?
I think majority of people wouldn't maybe recognize you necessarily in the street, but I suspect your support here is a lot greater than is visible, in the sense that we don't see you so much on our media, but I know that there's people who still hold on to Fox News there as people that are still willing to speak their mind. I certainly talk about you non-stop, which is a positive thing, and people also, I guess, when they support someone like me, are in turn supporting someone like you, because we're trying to stand up and articulate the views of those who feel that they no longer have a voice in the media because they're suppressed. They're told they're not allowed to say that. They're not allowed to think that. And I think you and I end up speaking the words of so many people who feel like they no longer have a voice.
Well, I think that's true. And, last night I went through, and today on the radio program, and yesterday I went through a list of 6 things that we ought to really be looking at as a country, besides 11 months of bizarre conspiracy theories. And I know I see the bias on the BBC all the time. It's so obnoxious. I'm actually surprised at how much the Daily Mail follows media in the United States. And I look at the Daily Mail online, and I'm shocked that I'm on there as much as I am.
Yes, you are. And it's a really key thing. When I think of Mail Online, I think of dailymail.com. So the US is certainly where the heart is, where our focus is. And I'm either writing for the UK or the US. And my good friend, your good friend, Piers, is certainly writing more for the dailymail.com, the US kind of audience. But you are very much part of the dailymail.com conversation, and I think it's so exciting for us. We just saw your Supreme Court do a fantastic thing and allow the Trump travel ban to stay in place more or less until October, when it will be looked at. For us, that we hold on to that. We look at America and we say, that's what we needed. We needed Theresa May to come out after that last terror attack when she said enough is enough, enough is enough, and we need a travel ban. So I think we get hope now from America in the same way that America, I'm sure, looks at us with some form of pity in the state that we've fallen into in Europe.
What you really need is Brexit, because you can't make decisions until you have Brexit. And the idea that anybody that gets any passport in any part of Europe can walk into your country and get full, complete services is an insane burden financially and in every other regard to Great Britain. And it was a bad idea from the start. Let me stay on media, though, for a second. Former vice presidential candidate, former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin, she ends up hiring Hulk Hogan's attorneys. He won that big lawsuit against Gawker, suing the New York Times for defamation for falsely accusing her in one of their editorials in June of inciting this guy, Jared Loughner, to shoot Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, which was insane. But you have different laws as it relates to both media and lawsuits. For example, loser pays. Explain how it works in Great Britain.
Absolutely. So if I was to take a lawsuit out here in the UK and lose, absolutely I pay, and absolutely I would be expected to pay damages. And what we have here, a recent case against me, in fact, on my Twitter feed, is we have judges that also want to teach a lesson. They want want to make a certain perspective heard. I feel very much that judges are not non-partisan. I think they very much are partisan. We hear people say a lot, don't we? The law is the law. Well, that isn't the case, is it? If you look at the Ninth Circuit, it's not the case. The law is really the partisan interpretation of the law. And I was used as a test case recently, which made the bar for libel on Twitter very, very low. So you can sue people for things they say on Twitter. I was sued for an apology for a tweet I made that I retracted and apologized for, but I was still sued for that, had to pay damages and their costs and mine. That's how it works here. So it's much easier here in the UK for people, or much more the case that people back down and cough up.
Right. So in other words, if I want to sue somebody and I'm going to have some skin in the game, then you get rid of all of these ridiculous, frivolous, insane lawsuits. So it actually, do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a good idea that we get rid of frivolous lawsuits. What concerns me from my learning is that judges have a certain impression going into these court cases, and I'm not sure the law is essentially the law. I definitely feel it's a partisan interpretation of the law. But in terms of the New York Times, I've had 2 retractions from them recently, 2 printed retractions in their paper because of wild assertions they made about things I hadn't said. And I have said now that going forward, the next thing the New York Times decides to print that is entirely without foundation, I will take action against them as well. So I do have sympathy for Sarah Palin.
You know, I honestly, only up until recently, I've just been willing to take the crap that the media throws at me.
You can't.
Well, now I've just got lawyers, and I may be following up with some lawsuits myself because I'm a little sick and tired of it. It's outright lying, it's smearing, it's slander, it's libel, and it's malicious. And, you know, I know the standard is so much higher, at least in the States, if you're a public figure. It seems like you're a public figure. That basically is interpreted by people. That means they can say anything they want against you.
Yeah, Sean, and you know what? I have a kind of a rule for myself on this, which is that the regular person in the street, you know, the regular punter, say what you want. You want to say you want to do this to me, or you're going to set my car on fire with me in it, or you're going to knock me over in the street. I don't really mind because, look, I put myself out there. I've got to suck it up. If I don't like it, I can sit at home on my sofa like the rest of the population and have an easy life. But when it comes to the media, when it comes specifically to the state broadcaster calling people hate speech, so after we had the white van incident where a man ran over a gentleman outside a mosque, a lot of white commentariat were called hate preachers in retaliation, and the BBC, the state broadcaster, there were legal cases brought against them, and they had to come out and say on air and make an apology and a retraction. And I think that's the line, Sean, is when the broadcasters who are in our own industry start, you know, using wild slurs and accusation and defamation that is simply without foundation. I think you have to take a legal stand.
You know, I think the biggest problem, the biggest issue in Europe and in Great Britain is this issue of, I still for the life of me can't figure out how you guys adopted over the years 80 plus Sharia courts. How in God's name did that happen? And especially considering what Sharia, what the real practice of Sharia is, the practical application of Sharia is in so many countries, which is oppressing women, killing gays and lesbians, and oppressing Christians and Jews. How did that ever happen to one of our closest allies?
I think it was a lot more strategic than we might imagine. People might imagine that we integrate cultures, we have multiculturalism, and we must be tolerant, and all of a sudden, look, we've got 800 now Sharia courts in the UK. What I actually think happened, it was a much more strategic plan by the Muslim population, and we see specifically the mayoral positions, so these positions of mayors in our major cities. I think 8 out of 10 of those are Muslim mayors now, because the voting system is very, what would you say, it is easy to get a number of votes from the same individual for a Muslim mayor. So we're seeing a gradual takeover of mayoral positions. We see a takeover with the Sharia courts. We even had our own law society, you know, the highbrow of the highbrow, sending out kind of memos and information of how you could make Sharia law, how to interpret it and include it within law society practices. We seem to have this thing, Sean, where we bow down like a doormat to the culture that chooses to join us, and we never stand up for the culture they chose to join. It drives me crazy.
I think a lot of things drive you crazy, which is why we love you. When we come back, I got to ask the Gobby One. There's an article in the Sacramento Bee today how Donald Trump is killing romance, and you blame Trump for everything. Why not blame him for that? Hey, listen, I can't stand the music we're introducing you with. Can't we find a compromise here somewhere?
We can, but it can't be. This is how we roll. I've chalked my finger in the door.
How are we going to drink together in a pub if this is the kind of music you listen to, marching king and queen music?
We'll find a happy medium. We're going to find a compromise. I'm thinking about Jerusalem. That's good. The WI sing Jerusalem when they go to their meetings. I think you'd love it.
All right, so I don't know if you have the same thing. What do they call this matchmaking thing? Timber and all that other stuff that they got? Tinder and all that other stuff?
We have that.
Okay, okay. So apparently Donald Trump, according to the Sacramento Bee, is saying people will ask straight up, did you vote for or do you support Trump? And if you did, boom, that's it. Or you're off. Trump voters, please swipe left and go to your room and think about what you have done on Tinder. I mean, where's this hatred coming from? Salon had to take a Trump-free Tuesday day today because they're so unhinged over there. What's going on?
Well, I mean, first things first, Mr. Hannity, I think you and I and the rest of the population should always be very cautious of anybody that meets their date online. Like, if you have to form a relationship online, it probably means that in real life you're a bit of a prat and nobody wants to hang out with you. And probably in order to persuade someone to go out with you, a prat, a bit of a, idiot, a bit of a Democrat.
Yeah.
You probably have to change your filter, make your picture look nicer. You probably had to hide your double chin and suck in your fat in order to get a date. So, A, you've got problems anyway. And B, I don't know why we all have to think the same. My husband, known as Lovely Mark, because how on earth could someone lovely be married to me? Lovely Mark votes Labour. Like, he's a proper liberal.
Oh, my gosh.
Sexy. I know. He wears soft shoes. He has an earring. He's nothing like what
how long have you been married to this guy?
I know. Too long, darling. Too long. My first marriage lasted less than a year, and this marriage has been going for about 8 years. So I'm like working on a cumulative basis when I do marriage anniversaries. I add them all together. But yeah, I think I need to change.
How long have you been married? How many years?
8.
You're not going to last till 10, are you?
No way. I hope not. I need a Trump husband or like a conservative.
Oh my gosh. Well, listen, we love you on this show. You're welcome here anytime. We're going to get you on TV.